Good morning, all. My name is Umbugadu, AA. I'm going to take you on the topic scientific methodology, science and technology in the society and service of man. Of course, you know this is GST211, that's history and philosophy of science. Let's start with the introduction. We say that the foundations of any successful economy or country are based on science, engineering, technology, and innovation, particularly when these countries are in transition to knowledge-based economies. So it is possible to think of the transmission of science, engineering, technology, and innovation information as a catalyst for socio-economic growth and as a key factor in shaping public policy on matters of science. The science, engineering, technology, and information are essential for developing countries to raise their living standards, to make money, and also to safeguard their natural resources and biodiversity. When we say developing countries, we mean countries that are putting all effort in place to see that they are moving toward development. So ours, I don't know whether we are developing or we are underdeveloped. Maybe at the end of the course, we get to know that. These problems need to be solved with the help of Set and I, and it is crucial to enlighten every aspect of a nation's society about how Set and I will address these issues. Therefore, we begin by considering how to gain access to knowledge that has been confirmed and produced by original research articles. For the underdeveloped countries, we have numerous barriers that hinders development. The terrain has been considerably harmed by deforestation and intensive cultivation. They are faced with high sickness rates. They have substantial detrimental impact on the economies of many countries, and they also make it difficult to get clean drinking water. Climate change, which has the potential to be a huge barrier to economic and human growth, could also have a detrimental influence on the gains that we have previously made. The access to scientific literature now as our subtopic. In industrialized countries, let me try to explain this. So we know we have countries that are developed and countries that are developing, and then the underdeveloped countries. Mostly the developed and then the developing countries are industrialized in the sense that they have industries that are running. So that's why we said in industrialized countries, it can be assumed that researchers will have access to the main literature as both the readers and also the authors. And such literatures will also have been passed quality assurance peer review. It is becoming more widely accepted that scientists in developing countries will be significantly disadvantaged by the lack of comparable rights. To accomplish these incredibly noble goals, numerous business models have been developed, and the one by John Walensky's great book evaluates various strategies. The author pays open access paradigm, which is at one extreme and created by the New Journal of Physics of the Institute of Physics and among other institutions. the Public Library of Science in the United States, the readers can clearly see the benefit of this paradigm shift, but it is less clear whether authors from developing nations or writers without research funds will benefit more from it. We know that has been our main problem in this country, where access to scientific literatures are very, very rare. We have the opposite of this subscription model, in which readers, or more typically the parent institution, pay for access. This arrangement is advantageous to authors because it allows them to submit their work for free scrutiny. On the other hand, the steadily rising cost of subscriptions causes cancellations and loss of access. So the International Network for the Availability of Scientific Publications and the Health Inter-Network Access to Research Initiative, that is HINARI, they are successfully addressing this issue for poor countries. And then the work of HINARI has been clearly demonstrated in Kenya. Science and people's interest. People's awareness of scientific knowledge can help them in their daily lives and must be increased through knowledge distribution. So if people are not aware of what science and technology is, of course, all that we have mentioned, they cannot be beneficial to that. So they need to be aware and they need to have interest in it. It also must be bi-directional. So participation of non-scientists in set and I issues will promote open dialogue, comprehension, and consensus between the scientific and non-scientific populations. Of course, that this class is a 211 class, which is the history and GST211 class, history and philosophy of science. So we try to assume, for the purpose of this course, that all of us are scientists. But of course, we know, truly speaking, we are not all scientists. So we need to open up a dialogue for comprehension, and also there must be a consensus between those of us in the sciences and those others that are not from the science background. Emerging sciences such as nanotechnology will have a big impact on long-term economic growth. Biotechnology, information and communication technologies, and nanotechnology, all members of society must be included in government conversations about the issues raised by the usage of these technologies. Effective science education is equally crucial to enhancing the scientific foundation. All parties interested in the SET and I initiative must consider the worries of other scientists as well as those of the general public. A report on recommended practices for educating the public about current scientific breakthroughs was released by the Royal Society in the year 2006. And this report offered a list of 15 characteristics that could help academics take the public interest into account and possibly steer clear of some of the difficulties they have previously run into when working on projects that have been deemed problematic by a variety of interested parties. So I'm now going to look at the scientific methodology. You know, normally in sciences, we don't just go out mostly in the lab. There must be a method that must be followed if you want to achieve a certain result. I think that clearly differentiates us from the non-scientists, or most especially those herbal practitioners that if you patronize them, and then you see that, let's say, two people patronizing a herbal practitioner with the same complaint, let's say headache or stomach ache, the procedure he will administer for the first person will be different from the one he will administer to the second person. But in sciences, some of these steps are taken, procedure are taken scientifically. That's a step-by-step approach, so that anybody anywhere can apply that, and then he will get a similar result, provided all conditions are the same. So we are going to look at some of this scientific methodology, and the steps are as follows. The first step is you ask a question. Normally, when you make an observation, the scientific method starts with a question such as how, what, when, who, which, why, and also where. I think a clear example of this is the story of Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton, we are told that when he was resting under an apple tree, then an apple fruit fell on his head. He was quick to ask, why is the apple falling down and not sideways or upwards? I think that question led to the discovery of the universal law of gravitation, because we always have that belief that everything that goes up must come down. Yes, so it is the law of gravitation, that something is pulling materials down to the earth. So Isaac Newton was able to explain that. That was why the apple fell down and hit him on the head, not going sideways or upward. So the question, asking a question, is very, very key in scientific methodology. The second one is for us to research the background. Of course, for you to be a smart scientist, you must ask questions, trying to ask, so person did this, what was his result? So that will save you time, that will save you money, and so many other things, because if you have a target to achieve, and then somebody somewhere happened to carry out a research before you, and then he follows so procedure, and the result seems to be slightly different from what you are looking for. So you try to look at the methodology, either to modify or to change completely. And then the third step is for you to build a hypothesis. Normally we say hypothesis is a reasonable assumption. So that's an assertion about how something works. A focus along these lines can be made by saying, if I do this, then what will happen? Of course, if you do this, what will happen? The first step was to ask the question, why? You went to the library, you did some ask questions, you research the background, and then the next one now, trying to put one or two things together by saying that if I do this, then what will happen? We said if you mix oxygen, hydrogen and oxygen, you get water. So then I want to do that. I want to mix the hydrogen and oxygen to see if I can get water. So that's what you do. If I do this, what will happen? So you want to see what will happen. Is it the water that I will get or something different? And then the next step is you test that hypothesis that you have developed. I would say a hypothesis is a valid assumption about how something works. So it is an attempt to respond to your inquiry with a textable explanation. You can make a focus like this using a strong hypothesis, because you remember the other one we said, if I do this, what will happen? Then this one is, if I do this, then this will happen. Okay, So the next one is for you to, after everything, you have to draw a conclusion. So when you collect your data after experiment is complete, after analyzing it, then you see whether your hypothesis is validated. Sometimes when we carry out an experiment, we find out that what we really had in mind was not what we have gotten. So we know in science, even watch the result. Yes, the result you have not necessarily rhyming with what you had in mind is also a result in its own, because somebody out there who wants to conduct a similar experiment with the same pattern will just look at your work and then said, okay, yes, this person did this, did that, and then he has gotten this. So what do I have new that I can put in? And then the last but not the least is you have to publicize your outcomes. That has to do with publishing your report so that others elsewhere can see, and then maybe trying to criticize or constructively by telling you, assuming you did this, this will have been that, this, and we know mostly once you publish, people try to look at your work and try to give their reasonable suggestion to it, because like here in Nigeria, you are onto a research, you go to the lab with so much heat, temperature of almost 30 degrees Celsius, and then after computing your result, you forgot to include the temperature range in your research, but somebody elsewhere trying to do it whose climate is different from yours, getting something not similar to yours, and then they try to raise objection simply because you did not include that, and they can see what the impact it has on your research result. Then how do scientists use the scientific method? Normally we do ask this question: is this strictly the steps outlined, are they strictly being followed? The answer is no. The answer is no. It may be modified by skipping steps. Sometimes we're switching back and forth between processes. Sometimes the operations are being repeated, just as we say that a chef may modify a dish depending on the materials they have on hand. But at the end, it's the same rice and beans, but with different materials. That's if a chef wants to cook rice and beans, not necessarily following the same procedure that says you must do this, you must do that. So he can put the pepper before the salt, not necessarily putting the salt before the pepper. Assuming somebody said you should put the salt before the pepper, so he can try to switch at a time. Then, however, using information, testing, and observations to support or refute theories about how a phenomenon operates. The fundamental rules of the scientific method are something that scientists always work to uphold. The best moment to test a theory is during an experiment. But in some areas of inquiry like astronomy, this is not always possible. Okay, well, the next subtopic is science and technology. We define science as a field of knowledge that focuses on identifying, classifying, and articulating universal truth. Technology itself is concept put together. Technology put concept into practice that science has proposed. So science explains and supports how a goal may be accomplished. Then from here, technology takes over and enhances science by putting the how into practice. This was explained by Williams, 1998. So this demonstrates that technology and science are symbolically related. That means they complement each other. We said science, the basis of technology, is a conscious search for reality, and technology is necessary for science to advance, vice versa for the other way around. The employment of procedures and technology, not science, is what increases output. Nevertheless, technology and science used to be two separate traditions with their own distinct identities, techniques, and activities. However, beginning in the 19th century, there was a growing closeness between the two. The development of science and technology was the pinnacle of bridging this gap between different identities. Simply said, utilizing technology allows us to harness and benefit from our understanding of nature for our own gain. It entails putting knowledge into practice. It is used to advance the state of humans, the environment, or other socio-economic endeavors. It could also be used to define or refer to all operations involving materials and their finished goods. So as a result, we have two main categories of technology. The material technology, of course, as the name implies, is a branch of technology that involves the incorporation of information into technologically sophisticated products, including tools, equipment, etc. And then the second one is the knowledge-based technology. This encompasses the administrative skills, the technical know-how, and the other procedures necessary for efficient crop cultivation or product production. So depending on the type and potential applications of a technology, it may be appropriate or improper. A technology is suitable if it makes use of the resources that are easily accessible in a certain economic environment. It focuses on equipment and methods that have been specifically designed to meet their requirement. Of course, we said the technology is suitable if it makes use of the resources that are easily accessible in a certain economic environment. If you have a technology that can refine or that can make something good, because technology normally we apply it to make life good and then to make life more comfortable for us. So you have assuming in a certain environment where resources are not available, but you have technology, somebody with the technology that can harness such a resources that is not available in that community. That technology to them is not useful. So we said the Canadian Hunger Foundation define appropriate technology as that which is more suited to the circumstances of a particular situation. Yes, because if it is not suitable for that circumstance, to them, to those people that technology is being deployed at that particular time, it is not useful to them. So the foundation states that the technology needs to have the following qualities in order to be suitable. 1, simple and uncomplicated. 2, manageable. 3, affordable, adaptable to changing needs. 4, it has to be flexible. 5, it has to be technically possible. 6, locally serviceable. 7, and with the ability to create jobs. Then 8, infrastructure that is in harmony with the cultural customs of the populace. So a technology may not perform as well in a completely other setting if it does well in one. So role of science and technology in the development of the society. So science and technology are essential to the present and future development of Nigeria as well as those of any other country. So technology has a tremendous impact on every society's capacity to produce money, to improve quality of life, and to undergo substantial economic growth. The sooner Nigeria understands that investing in education, the aspect of science and technology, is essential to our ability to overcome poverty, the better for us as a country. That was stressed by Boga in 2012. So in essence, technology is a primary driver of economic growth, as we have defined that in the introduction, as being the foundation of any successful country or any economy. It is a crucial requirement for improving the value of both raw commodities and human beings. It provides the key to unlocking the potential of any country in terms of reducing outsourced overhead costs and creating job possibilities. Young people in Nigeria and other nations will benefit from education in science and technology, not only because it will provide them with viable work possibilities, but also because it will train their minds to approach social challenges from a scientific point of view. Youth also, with an education in science and technology, have a lot of job prospects. And a lot of industrialized and advanced nations invest substantial amount of money in research and technology, which led to significant progress. Examples, France and the industrial revolution of the 19th century was extremely beneficial to the United Kingdom. Also in the 20th century, America had a comparable change from an agrarian to an industrial giant in the last century. Recent advances in silicon microelectronics, developed in the early 1960s, have been used by Taiwan and Korea. The world's industrial leaders in manufacturing and information technology are now China and India, respectively. So it is important to stress that all these nations made significant investment in the infrastructure, the factories, and labor force that serve as the bedrock for the enterprises of today. These successes were all built using carefully planned roadmaps of objectives and strategies. Unfortunately, however, most, if not all, cultures consider or perceive technology as a consumable good rather than a producible good or service manufactured in non-development or yet to develop countries. The importance of science and technology in national development. 1. In alleviating poverty. The success that has been gained thus far in the fight against poverty and in promoting economic growth has largely been attributed to science and technology. I've seen the world's food supply has now improved in terms of yield, greater efficiency, and more nutritious. Even though the advent of the genetically modified food has been protested by others, that it has side effects in terms of human consumption. So, but we have witnessed, of course, the effect of the positive impact of science and technology in agriculture by the larger yields in our food production. So technology in energy. People who currently live without electricity must have access to affordable energy, which is also a requirement for economic expansion. Finding innovative, environmentally and socially sustainable technology that can address the energy needs of developing countries will require further development and application of research. Water supply. We know that water is an essential commodity that we use in our daily lives. And then it has been reported that currently 2 billion people lack access to proper sanitation. So how do technology aid in water supply? We know that the pumps, like the water supply in Kefi, is from Gudi Gudi, right from Akwanga, almost 60 kilometers from here. So they need to channel this water through pipes, and then they need pumps, very big pumps, to move this water so that people in Kefi can access. So many other things that were put into consideration. It was just made possible because of technology. And then also the use of technology in environmental management. So we have discussed earlier how the poverty level in this part of the world leads to deforestation, which is a very, very prominent problem in the world today, causing climate change. So how do we deploy technology to aid in our environment and to assist the environmental management? Of course, we can deploy cameras to check those people that are always going to the bush to cut down trees, and then so many other things that can be deployed, even make the economic growth and rural development. So tragically, economic growth and opportunity depend on science and technology. They said a close relationship between economic growth and productive investment in science and technology has long been hypothesized by policymakers, and there's now growing evidence to support this hypothesis in 2 or 3 main ways. That was discussed essentially by Watson et al. 2003. Also, the use of technology and science in education. So the issue of a mismanaged economy, widespread unemployment, the demise of healthcare and education, insecurity, inflation, and crumbling infrastructure, etc., can all be linked to Nigeria's underinvestment in research and technology. I think that summarizes everything, because if you look at the budget, the past 6 years budget of Nigeria, you can see the investment in education, and when we say education, that covers all aspects of education. But singling out the science and technology is another thing. So if we want to develop as a country, we have to invest in science and education. So thank you very much.